I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, homies? Leighton here for UFC Gambling Addicts, back again for another UFC full card breakdown and predictions video. This one's going to be Alexander Rakic versus Anthony Smith, and there's a lot of really decent fights on this card. But before we get into this card, we're going to just spend a little time looking at last week. Now, if the main event would have went to Pedro Munoz, if that split decision would have went to Pedro, it would have been a beautiful night of profit. Wasn't meant to be though. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys think Pedro Munoz done enough to win that fight. And I'm sure there's a few of you guys, I'm not going to say a lot, but I'm sure there's quite a few of you guys that felt Frankie Edgar done enough to win that fight. What we can both agree on was it was a very close fight, right? Round one, very close. Who do you give that first round to? I think round two, I think we could all agree that that second round did go to Frankie Edgar. Now, round three, I felt that was a close round, but realistically, I think we should be siding with Pedro Munoz for that one. Round four, for me, Pedro. And round five was very, very close. You know, could have gone either way. So, overall, it was a very, very close fight. And it could have gone either way. Like I said, I know a lot of you feel Pedro Munoz won that. A few of you are going to think Frankie Edgar. But we're going to move on to Alexander Rakic and Anthony Smith. This card has some very decent matchups on it, and I'm excited to break them down. Don't forget to smash that like button too, you know, head kick, whatever you want to do, submission, it's your call. Fight number one, we have Sean Brady versus Christian Aguilera, and we're going to start with Sean. So Sean comes into this fight 2-0 inside the UFC, primarily a jiu-jitsu fighter, with a very well-rounded game. For those of you who can't remember, Brady has beaten Court McGee and Ismail Nordiev. Both of those guys are no pushovers. In his debut, he displayed aggression. In his most recent fight, he used his wrestling to nullify the kickboxer. Sean Brady has looked top quality so far. The opponent, Christian Aguilera, comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. Debuted on short notice against Anthony Ivy. For those of you that can't remember that one, Christian was a big underdog and he got it done very quickly. Landed a nice hook. From there he used his killer instinct to get it done. This is MMA, so of course Christian could do something similar in this fight. Land a big hook and look to finish Brady. But the flip side is, I see Brady being more well-rounded. This is arguably an easier fight on paper than Court McGee and Nordiev. I see Brady using his wrestling or having success with his stand-up. The pick is going to be Sean Brady via submission in round number 2. Now, I haven't seen any odds yet, and I do need to bring out my membership insight tonight, so I will do that after this upload. But for the first fight, we have Sean Brady coming in minus 400. That is a big one. Christian Aguilera returning plus 300, plus 340. Now, I would say that line is a little bit off. You know, maybe not minus 400 for Sean Brady. Maybe like closer to minus 300. But like I said, Sean Brady has looked top quality so far. And in my opinion, Christian has more of a puncher's chance than anything, you know. So the pick is going to be Sean Brady. Fight number 2, and what a pick and fight this is. We have Emily Spitfire Whitmire versus Polyana Viana, and we're going to start with Emily. So Emily comes into this fight 2 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Emily has had some trouble with her grappling. She was choked out in her last one, but then again, Amanda Ribas is an absolute beast. No shame in that loss, really. Would we class Emily as a grappler or a kickboxer? The way she wrapped up Albu showed me she was a grappler, but like I said, completely dominated in her last one, looked nothing like a grappler. The opponent, Polyana Viana, comes into this fight 1 win, 3 losses inside the UFC, training out of Tata Fight Team in Brazil. Polyana now on a 3-fight losing streak. not really having much success with her game. She couldn't get her kickboxing going against Cifers, and she was quickly armbarred by Macedo, potentially make or break for Viana in this fight. I think Viana is the better kicker in this fight, but I see Emily having better boxing and wrestling. If Emily takes down Viana up against the fence, looks to end up on top, just zap and bully Viana, I could definitely see her winning this fight. Flip side is, Viana, I could see landing kicks, using her jiu-jitsu for sweeps to get back to her feet, or even finding a submission. It really is a 50-50 fight on paper. But, you know, we have to pick a side. We have to pick a side of the coin. And in all honesty, guys, there's no much more confidence on either side, right? For me, I'm going to pick the Brazilian side of the coin, purely because I think Viana could catch her Emily in a submission at some point, or even use those kicks to add up points. Really, really tough decision to make. I'm sure a lot of you guys are pulling your hair out trying to find the real story to this matchup. But for me, I'm going to side with the Brazilian via decision. And the odds, we have Emily Whitmire, -140, -150. Wow. Viana coming back +120, +130. So that's interesting. That's such a 50-50 fight. But Emily Whitmire becoming a slight favourite for some reason. Maybe that boxing, wrestling, looking to end up on top. Just a bigger girl in there. But for me, you know, in such a 50-50 fight, I'm glad I've been given the plus on this matchup. So the pick is going to be Viana. Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Austin Springer. And we're going to start with Alex. So Alex comes into this fight 11 wins, 11 losses inside the UFC. Horrible record at the highest level. But if you've seen Caceres fight, then you know why he's still here. He's an entertaining guy to watch. Throws a lot of flashy kicks. His movement is very unorthodox. His movement sets up his kicks too. But after a round of being in there with him, you start to figure out he's more flash than danger. And that's ultimately why Alex has 11 losses in his UFC career. He's not exactly a devastating puncher. The opponent, Austin Springer, comes into this fight 11 wins, 3 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut on very, very short notice. Austin actually has a win over Giga Chikadze, the UFC fighter who originally was supposed to take this fight. Austin was able to take the back of Giga on the Contender Series and find that choke. Used his groundwork nicely in that fight in front of Dana White. I believe both of these fighters have very different paths to take to achieve victory in this contest. If you're Caceres, you're doing what you always do. Stay tricky, stay upright, avoid being taken down, which can be a tough job for Caceres sometimes. Austin needs to take this fight to the mat. I don't see his stand-up ability being too effective in this fight. For me, I'm going to stick with Alex Caceres. He showed me slight improvements on his takedown defense against Peterson. Nice straight punches against Chase Hooper. I think he has the ability to beat Austin. So my pick is going to be Caceres via decision. I'm interested to see the odds. Do we have odds on this matchup yet? No, we don't. I do believe that Caceres will be a favourite, but I'm not too sure how much of a favourite he's going to be. Maybe -160, -170. Now, this is another matchup that I believe really could go either way. We have Zach Cummings versus Alessio De Chirico, and we're going to start with Zach. So Zach comes into this fight 8 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Zach's one of these guys who has the experience to perform well against any fighter or win when he's behind. For example, his fight against Trevin Giles. He was being outpointed in that fight, but got it done late in the last round. Didn't have enough to beat Omari in his last fight, but we know how tough that Russian dude is. The opponent, Alessio de Chirico, comes into this fight 3 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. An Italian fighter, primarily a striker from what we've seen. In both of his last fights, he's lost via decision. In all honesty, he competed well in those fights. Outgunned by both Kevin Home Alone Holland and Muradov. But I felt he gave a good account of himself in those fights. This is a really tough prediction to make. Zach does have the punching power to sleep Alessio, but we haven't seen Alessio slept yet. Could Zach out-wrestle Alessio to win a decision? I don't think that'll happen. You know, I don't really see a wrestling contest for 15 minutes in this specific matchup. For me, this fight will come down to significant strikes and octagon control. For me, that's going to be the Italian. Maybe not by much, but that's the side I feel more comfortable being on. That's the story to this matchup that I can see. So for me, I'm going to take Alessio via decision. And the odds, I mean, yeah, the odds, this is exactly what I feel. Alessio minus 115, Zach minus 105. Please let me know in the comments how you see that one playing out. You know, what is the story to this fight? Because Zach does have the ability, but we haven't seen Alessio, you know, slept. We haven't seen him knocked down off of these big strikes. You know, it's a really tough one to decide on, but for me, I feel a little bit more comfortable being on the Italian in that one. Mallory Martin versus Hannah, Shockwave Cifers. And we're going to start with Mallory. So Mallory comes into this fight 0 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Defeated in her UFC debut by the Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Jandaroba. Mallory is primarily a grappler from the tape we've all seen. Likes to use her wrestling, ends up on top, looks to maintain that position, a smasher in the top control position. Hannah Cifers comes into this fight 2 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC, primarily a Muay Thai striker, quite a physically strong fighter in the clinch too. Hannah has been finished in all 4 of her losses, all 4 finishes on the mat too, so it's no secret where she's in danger in this fight. I've never picked I've never picked Hannah Cifers in a UFC fight. I've gone against her in all 6 of her UFC fights. But this time, listen, I don't feel great about it. But I actually think Cifers has a good chance in this fight. She's been in there with good opposition. Better grapplers than Mallory Martin. Better strikers than Mallory Martin. Higher level fighters than Mallory Martin. If Hannah keeps this fight upright, which will be the real test for her, I think she can score well on the feet with her Muay Thai. I'm going to take a chance, a leap of faith. My pick is going to be Hannah Cifers via decision. And there's no doubt in my mind she'll be the underdog, but wow, plus 250, plus 270, plus 280 on Hannah Cifers. So yeah, everyone's counting her out, especially after the Maria Agapova. Oh my god, I haven't mentioned that fight. Guys, if you took Dobson at plus 1,000, amen to you, alright? Amen before the smoke break, but that has to play into this line, right? Hannah Cifers, I mean, she should be the underdog, right? But should she be plus 280? Mallory Martin has to take her down, because if this fight stays upright, Hannah will blast her with kicks. Hannah is going to look to make this fight a very difficult fight for Mallory. And I think, you know, she has a good chance, especially at plus 280. I can't not play it. And I know a lot of people right now are probably thinking, listen, you should be playing the plus 1,000 on Dobson. But listen, I have to see a path to victory for you to, before I play that line, right? I know a lot of you guys, well, I wouldn't say a lot of you guys, but some of you guys, you're all about the line no matter what. Like, If you can't see that person winning at plus 1,000, you're going to play that line because you're a gambler. For me, I have to see it and then gamble, right? We all have our own strategies, but yeah, Hannah Cifers is going to be my pick in this fight. I think she has good Muay Thai, and if she can keep it upright, she has a chance for sure. Last fight on the prelim card, we have Maki Coconut Bombs Pitolo versus Impa Kasanganay, and we're going to start with Coconut Bombs. So Maki comes into this fight 1 win, 2 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a body ripper, a snatcher of the body. We saw Maki fight just a few weeks ago. He was choked out in that fight. In his UFC debut, he struggled with grappling. Not against Charles Byrd though. The ideal fight for Maki would be a stand-up fight. A pure stand-up fight. But then again, you know, he did shoot for that takedown a few weeks ago. Maki was actually the fighter choosing to take that fight to the mat for some reason. You know, very questionable decision that he made in that fight that ultimately caught himself in a submission. The opponent, Impa Kasanganay, comes into this fight 7-0 as a pro, coming off a win on the Contender Series too. Looking back at Impa's last fight on the Contender Series, he showed good conditioning and cardio, ate some nasty low kicks in the first round, was able to push the pace with his grappling up against the fence for the second and last round. This is without a doubt a step up in competition for Impa, but it's a step up I believe he could have success with. Maki has shown to slow down, make bad decisions inside the octagon, like shooting for that takedown against Darren. And he's also shown weakness in his grappling. If Impa can force Maki into a wrestling contest, I see him slowing Maki down, having success with those takedowns, with those scrambling exchanges. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Impa Kasanganay via decision in his UFC debut. And the odds on this matchup, we have Impa coming in minus 120, Maki returning plus 110, which sounds right. You know, Impa is that style of fighter that Maki is going to struggle with. You know, very physically strong, good wrestler, he's going to push a pace. But if Maki can, you know, show that determination that he did against Charles Byrd, look to avoid the takedown or even get back to his feet and then start ripping the body, then start hurting Impa on those breaks from the clinch, then he could have a really good chance in this fight. It really is a tough decision to make, but for me, I feel more comfortable going with the newcomer there in Impa Kasanganay. Alright, let's do it. You know what time it is. If you waited to smoke with me, amen. If you've been smoking the whole time, double amen. If you're not a smoker, but you enjoy the smoke breaks, that's a triple amen, my homies. I hope all of you homies have been doing well, keeping your health all good, all of that good stuff, you know. Couple questions to kick this smoke break off. First question, would you guys like to see my own personal odds put on the screen? So you have the actual odds, and then I'll do UFC GA odds. A couple people have asked for that in the comments, so I thought I'd make it a community thing where you guys can give me your input. You know, would you like to see that added on the screen for these breakdowns? My next question to you guys, what fight do you think is going to be fight of the night? Because we haven't seen these fights yet, right? But if you had to pick one fight for fight of the night, what fight are you going to pick? You know, let's see who can get that one. Let's see how many of you guys can nail fight of the night. Breakdown goals. This breakdown is coming out very, very late in the week. So let's keep it very minimum. 2 channel memberships, 100 subscribers, and 200 head kick likes. I'd like to make a quick shout out to all of the current UFC GA channel members. I will post my betting insight tonight, parlay builders and finishers. So hopefully we can get another good back and forth conversation going on all the parlays we're going to be taking. I have some news for you guys too. It's not great news. It's quite bad news, to be honest. I took my first groin strike in training the other day, yesterday. Man, oh man, I was out of that drill. That was a 3-minute, 4-minute recovery. It was horrible, man. I wasn't wearing a cup either. You know what I mean? Because I don't expect to be groin shotted and nailed hard in that area, but it happened. You know, there was no cup being worn. It killed me. It hurt, man. It was a bad one. It's really weird, man, like showing up to the gym and just like seeing Arnold Allen there every day. It's like, you're right, Arnold, mate. Like, it's weird. But then again, he's going to fly back to TriStar soon and start training with Faraz and all of those guys over there. But for the time being, man, it's really cool. Like, every time the pros come in to train, that's when my session finishes. But I stay and watch that, man, because that's what you need to do, right? If you're looking to compete, you want to watch as much as you can. You want to watch every MMA fight you can. You want to learn, become a better version of yourself every single day. That's what we should all be looking to do, you know, becoming a better version of ourselves every single day. That's all we can ask for ourselves, you know. Sounds quite hippie and it sounds like cliche, but it's true, man. You've got to become a better version of yourself every single day. Alright guys, let's get into the main card for breaking down these fights. Magomed Ankalaev versus Cutelaba. Now, I've broken this fight down twice already and I'm doing it again. So I'm simply going to go straight into how I think this fight plays out. Magomed, in my opinion, is the more well-rounded fighter. If we look at Cutelaba's history, it shows he's round one or bust. He's extremely dangerous in that first round, but if you can weather the storm, chances are you're going to go on to finish Cutelaba. It's a good possibility that Cutelaba knocks Magomed out in round one, but in my opinion, an even better possibility that Magomed either TKO or submits Cutelaba outside of round one. For me, I'm going to take Magomed via submission in round number 3. I just think Cutelaba, you know, he's going to look to do the same thing that he always does. Comes out with pure aggression. He's not going to play games this time. He will try to decapitate Magomed in that first round. If he can't do it, I simply think the Russian is going to use his overall skill set of striking and grappling to find a finish against Cutelaba. So let's take a look at the odds. We have Magomed coming in with the same odds he had on the last fight, which is perfect in my opinion. Minus 300. Cutelaba returning plus 250, plus 260. I'm going to side with the Russian in hopefully a fight that we get to see. Ricardo, the Bully, Lamas versus Bill Algeo. This is a very tough prediction to make. We're going to start with Ricardo Lamas. So Ricardo comes into this fight 10 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. A veteran of the 145 weight class. A very seasoned fighter in pretty much all areas the fight can go. Lamas is a good wrestler, defensively a good wrestler, powerful puncher, an experienced kicker too. Lamas is just a well-rounded veteran at this point. Damage starting to accumulate for sure, arguably out of his prime, but still a tough fight for any fighter in the 145 weight class. The opponent, Bill Algeo, comes into this fight 13 wins, 4 losses as a pro, getting an opportunity in the UFC on short notice. Bill got an opportunity on the Contender Series some time ago, had a very good fight with Brendan Loughnane, back and forth fight, both guys really leaving it all out there. Bill is primarily a kickboxer, and quite a good one too. That should come in handy against such an experienced guy in Ricardo Lamas. Without a doubt, this is the toughest opponent Bill Algeo would have fought to date. The well-rounded game of Lamas could cause problems, such as being taken down, pushed against the fence, just that experience Lamas will bring. But for me, I think Bill uses good movement, uses that reach and size advantage. He could edge out close rounds. He is a very decent kickboxer. Super tough prediction to make. I'm sure we're going to be split on this fight as a community. But I've got Bill Algeo. I just think if he lands those kicks, uses good movement, stays upright, just dictates that range more than not, I think he could edge this one out. So I'm going to take Bill Algeo via decision. And the odds are pretty insane. I mean, don't get me wrong. Ricardo Lamas does have a path to victory. He is the more proven guy. He is the veteran in this fight. But Bill Algeo is a good kickboxer, and he could cause problems for Ricardo Lamas. We have Ricardo coming in minus 280, minus 305. Bill Algeo returning plus 250, plus 260. Now, I always make my predictions prior to seeing the odds. So, absolutely, I'm going to take Bill Algeo at those odds. But, yeah, like I said, man, Ricardo has a good chance in winning this fight. But for me, Bill Algeo, especially at those odds. Ji-Yeon Kim versus Alexa Grasso. And we're going to start with Kim. So Kim comes into this fight 3 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a boxer inside the octagon. Coming off a TKO win over Nadia Kassem, which her price for a TKO was pretty crazy in that fight. This is a massive step up from Kassem. The biggest step up you could take in women's MMA. Because Alexa Grasso has good boxing, just like Ji-Yeon Kim. The opponent, Alexa Grasso, comes into this fight 3 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a boxer inside the octagon. Losses most recently to Carla Esparza and Tatiana Suarez. Both of these fighters adopting similar approaches, taking the boxer to the mat, nullifying Alexa. For the moments Alexa is upright, she's a very dangerous boxer. I noticed that Alexa was quite nervous to let her punches go against Carla. She has to work on that, If you're fighting a wrestler, you still have to be offensive when you're upright. You can't be defensive. This isn't a defensive sport. It's an offensive sport. I do believe we'll have a stand-up battle in this fight. And I see Alexa having bigger and better moments. Not too confident though in this pick, because Kim is a good kickboxer and boxer, but I'd expect Alexa Grasso to win this one, so I'm going to take Alexa via decision. And the odds are, it's overpriced. Alexa coming in minus 280, minus 290, Ji-Yeon Kim returning plus 240, plus 250. If both of these girls were purely just to box, then yeah, Alexa Grasso all day. But Ji-Yeon Kim's going to look to land kicks more than Alexa Grasso, I believe. So that's where the fight could get quite interesting. But for me, I think Alexa is going to land the more significant punches and more often too. So I am going to side with the Mexican in that fight. Co-main event, we have Robbie Ruthless Lawler, or Ruthless Robbie Lawler versus Neil Magny. And we're going to start with Robbie. So Robbie comes into this fight 9 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. The former champion of the welterweight division. Everyone loves Robbie Lawler. I've never seen an MMA fan say I don't like that guy. And I'm sure 99% of you can relate to that pretty much. Robbie is a savage. He's looking to decapitate you in there. His output isn't great, but man, he's a dangerous puncher at all times. Coming off a loss to Colby, just completely dominated when it came to output, wrestling, cardio. No shame though. Robbie Lawler has had his day, but he's still a very, very dangerous puncher. A dangerous guy in the 170 division. The opponent, Neil Magny, comes into this fight 16 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a striker. Neil has really been in good form of late. You look at both of his last performances over the Leech and Tony Martin. Super impressive performances. He used his grappling very well against the Leech. The distance management against Tony Martin, very impressive. Neil Magny is on a late climb in the 170 division and I love it. This is still a tough prediction to make. Robbie Lawler has the brute power to crush a guy like Neil Magny. But at this point of his career and the damage he's taken, I think it's starting to show. Neil looks smarter than he's ever looked inside the octagon. He's using his advantages well, which is his reach. Neil seems to be on a different trajectory than Robbie. So purely down to those reasons, I'm going to take Neil Magny to outscore Robbie over 15 minutes and pick up a decision win. So taking a look at these odds, Jesus, man, we have Neil Magny coming in minus 250, minus 240. Robbie Lawler returning over plus 200. I'd have to disagree with the line again. I mean, Neil Magny should be a favourite, but more like minus 160. You know, minus 240, minus 250. It's getting up there. You know, it's getting to the point of domination. And I don't really think that's going to happen. Neil Magny, for sure, could look impressive in this fight again, but Robbie Lawler is such a dangerous opponent. To cap him at plus 200 in this matchup is pretty crazy. But I am going to side with Neil Magny in this co-main event. Main event time, homies. And maybe I'm going to add a new addition to the breakdowns. We're going to spark up on every main event purely for the fact that if it goes to a split decision, we said our prayers at this moment. Alright, we have Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Alexander Rakic. And we're going to start with Anthony. So Anthony comes into this fight 8 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a dog, a hard worker, a journeyman that never quit, a fighter that proves hard work pays. Coming off an absolute beatdown from the veteran Glover Teixeira. Took a lot of damage in that fight. So much damage, he even handed the ref his own tooth that fell out during that beatdown. Anthony has brilliant straight punches, an underrated jiu-jitsu game, and determination that's a part of his DNA. Just a dog of a fighter, man. The opponent, Alexander Rakic, comes into this fight 4 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Primarily a Muay Thai striker. Devastating finishes over Devin Clark and Jimmy Manuwa. Unorthodox in the spinning attacks. The Jimmy Manuwa finish shows how brilliant that Muay Thai is from Alexander Rakic. Picture perfect head kick. Rakic suffered a setback to Volkan. He was pushed to a place that no other opponent has taken him, and he wasn't able to pass that test. This main event really could go either way, but I do believe it's Alexander's fight to lose. The reason I say this is he simply needs to show how much this game means to him. There's no doubt in my mind which fighter has proven their determination. That's Anthony, for sure. You look at Anthony taking Volkan to deep waters and taking his soul. Volkan basically took Rakic to deep waters and taught him a lesson. Has Alexander learnt that lesson? Can he go 25 minutes with such a dog in Anthony Smith? I believe he can, whether it's a 25-minute performance that Rakic slightly edges or a TKO in the first 10 minutes for Rakic. I believe he has the Muay Thai skills to hurt Anthony early and often. The question is heart. Does Rakic have the heart outside of those 10 minutes? I'm going to say yes, but like I said, that's the real question here. For me, I'm going to take Alexander Rakic via TKO in round number 1. And the line, again, it's a little bit overpriced. I mean, Rakic should be the favourite. I agree with that. But at minus 270, it's a bit high. It should be closer to minus 200. So maybe some money coming in on the overpriced Anthony Smith at plus 240. But yeah, the pick's going to be Rakic for me. Like I said, I think his Muay Thai is very, very good. And in those first 10 minutes, we could see that. You know, we could see Alexander Rakic finish Anthony Smith with that Muay Thai. If it goes outside of those 10 minutes, it's going to get very interesting. I'm going to say Rakic does have the heart to fight outside of those 10 minutes, but man, it's going to get very interesting if it does. Alright homies, I've enjoyed breaking down all of these fights. If you enjoyed the breakdown, please let me know. And let's get engaging on this card. Alright, peace.